Empty chairs and Santerns halls, big summit calls, but no one falls. Trump's got his cards close to his chest. Ramaphosa takes the hit like the rest. No flags flying high, no handshake in the sky. No USA and RSA, no deal, no way, no USA and RSA, just words to betray. Sad faces hiding their prayers. Pretoria shaking from the heat, while DC's not even on its feet. Lines drawn in the sand, Trump pulls a winning hand. No USA and RSA, no deal, no way, no USA and RSA, just words to betray.
Marvin Devine. I'm saying bye to all the lies and all the times you cried, saying that I wasn't right, yet I was right by your side. You manipulator, playing games, your friends commentators, and I don't know what you say about our private conversations, but it's got them hating. Thanks to all the rumors you be claiming. It's cool, I'm done with you, so they can throw you a celebration. You gon' hate it when you see me with somebody living better. I'm trying to tell you that me just doing me gon' have you jealous.
Sunday, November 16th, 2025. Welcome back to the program, folks. It's a pleasure. Hey, good to see you all again. How are things out there? How are you being treated by the world? Hopefully better than the All Blacks were treated yesterday. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. The All Blacks took it on the chin yesterday at Twickenham as England stepped up to the task and spanked them down. Springboks looked atrocious for much of the first half, but then finally got their act together with a strange lineup. And despite yet another red card, I have advance notice from the South African Rugby Union and Rassie Erasmus that next week's starting lineup will include just 13 players. That way, they'll already take care of the automatic red card for a South African player before the game starts, and the anticipated yellow card that will come in the first 10 minutes for a South African player looking cross-eyed at his opponents. So I already here to announce that next week just 13 players will be announced for the starting 15 for the Springboks to save the corrupt officials time to go ahead and hand out those red and yellow cards. So there you go, folks. All right, let's get to it. Sunday. We've got to make one change here before we get going any further. I need to put up a link for the Ref G chat, which will be coming up, and then link it. So, yeah. All right, let me see. Here we go. We need to put up a stream. I've been busy as usual. Imagine that. Well, I've been busy. Yeah, we got to get the Ref G chat set up for the Cafe Clutch for those who want to come to that. That will be later this afternoon, evening for those in South Africa. Today is the 16th. Fix that. Thank you for your indulgence here. I do appreciate you sticking with me while I take a few moments to take care of this. That will be at 1 o'clock. Yes, so 8 o'clock South African time. 1 p.m. There we go. That's set up. Now we just need to link this one to that one so that people can get from one place to the other without hunting for it. Because we all know how YouTube just automatically promotes all of my content, right? They just do such a great and wondrous job promoting all my content because they're such lovely people. What the hell's going on here? Now it's making me do something I don't want to do. Okay, come on, PooTube. Let's go. PooTube, PooTube, PooTube. All right, there we go. That's what I wanted, that button, not the other one. Come on, baby. Come on, getting closer, getting closer, getting closer. By the way, I will appear on News, Biz News next week. I've been asked to come on, so we'll see how that goes. I'll be recording Wednesday. Hello. Why am I not getting my buttons? There we go. Gee, many crickets. Wow. I tell you what. So this turned into a minute. It should have taken about 30 seconds max, so my apologies for that. And now it's all set up. Whew, that was a lot of work there. Jeez, my goodness. Stuff I would have done before the top of the show, but just a little bit busy. So how are we doing out there, folks? Corrupt officials. Yeah, they are corrupt. They're either corrupt or incompetent. Absolutely incompetent. Look, I mean, there's some really good officials out there, but there's been some really atrocious officiating. Absolutely atrocious officiating. Well, Cronier gets all my shorts. Cronier, I have potential place for you need to write to me again, Cronier. You asked me about something. Write to me again. Send me a message. And then if I can release your contact to the person, I will do that. I think you'll allow me. So he'll be able to give you a hand there, okay? All right? So, all right, let's get to the news. Ladies and gentlemen, 342 people currently here. I know you want to hear about Ronald Lamola's racist remarks about Donald Trump. Do not fret. I will be making a video between the two shows and publishing that video about how, I mean, are these people for real? I mean, are they really just that dumb? Neil told me they're that dumb. Are they really that dumb? Wow. So they either believe the propaganda they see in the media, or they're just that stupid. I mean, so and this is not just a trend, not just a one-off, not a one-off, because now we have Ibrahim Rasool and Ronald Lamola publicly stating, two senior officials in the Ramaphosa administration, claiming that Donald Trump is a white supremacist. We now know there's unequivocal proof that the leadership of the ANC believes Donald Trump to be a racist and white supremacist, or at least that's their attack, so that they can diminish him somehow. These are really not very bright people on the eve of the G20, and they're stepping up the rhetoric about the whole thing. And we're going to talk about that. A bunch of op-eds today by some people who should know better and some idiots who, typical village idiot doing the same sort of thing. But I'll tell you, giving spring box cards have become a ref goal. They really, yeah, yep. It's in the DNA. I think it's in the DNA of some of these people. So let's get to the news. All right, first off, right out of the gate, Minister Ronald Lamola. This will air on CNN later tonight for South Africans. It'll be early in the morning. I will do another video in advance of this to point out just how stupid this is. Now, let me talk about that video very quickly for some of you who are here but may not know the facts. Earlier this year in the summertime, after my return from South Africa, CNN contacted me. CNN asked me if I'd be willing to come on a documentary in advance of the G20. I said, what's the documentary about? Well, it's about the state of South Africa today, its economy, its history, and we want to touch a little bit on the refugees. That's what they told me. So, not trusting them, but hey, they offered to pay for a free trip to send me to Birmingham, Alabama. So they sent me to Birmingham, Alabama, and I figured, hey, you know what? Their dime, my opportunity to speak to Earl Langton, his family, and other refugees down there, and get some footage and meet these people in person. So, hey, I said, that's fine. I said, I'll do it. They never had any intention of doing the documentary that they lied to me about. The documentary that they lied to me about was never their intention. Their intention was always to create a racially divisive narrative, that divisive narrative that would divide people and would make Donald Trump look bad and make white people look bad. They went and found toothless oaks in the hills of Tennessee. I'm embellishing, but you get my point. They went and found people who said the words they wanted to say, a fringe number of people who made this nonsense. And then, of course, the journalist says, in 20 years, whites will be a minority in America. What do you think of that? And he's asked that question of Elon Musk. Why are you asking Elon Musk about the ethnicity of the United States? Shouldn't you be asking him about what's going on in South Africa? But no, this is intentionally set up. And then they frame the whole thing to make white people look like racist in the aggregate, when the racists themselves are the white people that are making this documentary in their behavior because of this nonsense, and the black supremacists who they put on air. I haven't seen the video. I have seen the outtakes and the clips that are promoting it, and it is repulsive and vile. I will record and watch it tonight as soon as it still airs on CNN, but it's a disgrace, an absolute disgrace, an absolute disgrace. But what I have to say, folks, is that thank you, CNN, for the free plane ride. Thank you for the accommodation you paid for. And I not only was able to see those guys, I got to go to Birmingham, place I haven't been since I was a child. And in addition to that, I got to check out veterans organizations there and see some of the things taking place. So there you go. So not quite the same thing that the BBC did to Trump, but also this is a pure hit job. Now, the things that people say are the things that they say, but the way they're presented is intentional. And the shocking comments coming out of the mouth of the Minister of Foreign Affairs. So you're going to see a strange dichotomy of events unfold in the next several news stories as I show you the racist attacks on the United States, on Donald Trump, by South African officials, responses by the South African government, which are in the other direction, and then the typical glitterati in the media who like to run their mouth, and some of them should just keep it shut about what's happening. So I'm going to point out some of the shortcomings and hypocrisy of what you're going to see here. Let's go ahead and get to those stories. Lamola accuses Trump of white supremacy. He raises stakes in a CNN interview as tensions rise amid white genocide. Now, I have been told, but so I'm not making this claim. I don't like to spread rumors, but I've been told by more than one person, and I don't know if they have placement access. That's why I'm not going to assert this, that CNN was approached by the ANC to make this documentary, which makes all the sense in the world. I don't know if that's true. But it's a shamumentary. It's not a documentary. We'll see. I'm going to investigate that story and see if there's any smoke to that fire. Days before the G20 summit kicks off in Johannesburg, International Relations Cooperation Minister Ron Lamola has accused U.S. President Donald Trump of pursuing the agenda of white supremacy in a CNN interview to be aired this afternoon. It was excruciatingly difficult, and there is fear-mongering to pursue the agenda of white supremacy. With the program to take white Afrikaners from South Africa, it's a clear program to back up the issue of white supremacy. White supremacy. Really. So let me understand how this works, Ron and Lamola. You take white people out of South Africa, and that promotes white supremacy? How does that promote white supremacy in South Africa? I don't understand that. And bringing a couple hundred people to the U.S. is going to promote white supremacy amongst the white population of 234 million white people? Yeah, I'm not sure I understand that stupidity. I mean, that's a level of stupidity that's just, astronomically high. White supremacy. I mean, this would be the president who gave $500 million to historically black colleges and universities. This would be the president who is taking illegal immigrants out of the country, thereby allowing proper labor rates to be paid to black Americans who are underpaid because they're undercut by illegal immigrants who are taking jobs on the low end of the economic spectrum from black Americans. This would be the president who opposes abortion, which accounts for 1/3 of all abortions in America, even though black women account for just 13%, 11% of the female population. Yet they account for over 1/3 of the ended lives. This would be a man who came up with a platinum plan to invest in neighborhoods in black districts, overwhelmingly black districts, so that they have economic recovery. Whereas Obama and Biden and Bill Clinton did nothing for the black community. So a white supremacist agenda. It's a strange way of promoting a white supremacist agenda when you do things repeatedly for black people specifically to advance their lives. Really stupid people should wear stupid signs. In the interview, CNN's Donnie O'Sullivan asked Lamola, do you think Trump is pursuing a white supremacist agenda? Yes, I think so. With the program to take white Afrikaners from South Africa, it's a clear program to back up the issue of white supremacy. When you look at the Geneva Convention, they don't fit the definition of a refugee. See, the problem with that is Ronald Lamola is just either a liar or he's dumber than a box of rocks. I mean, which is it? You tell me, Minister, which is it? Are you simply lying or are you just that stupid? I mean, honestly, are you lying or are you just that stupid? I mean, what he's referring to, folks, is right here, and I'll show it to you on the screen. This is what he's referring to, and he's lying about this. So he's saying that they don't fit the description of refugees. But apparently Palestinians who don't live in tents, haven't fled a war, and aren't registered with the UN arrive in South Africa illegally, and they're refugees. Now, you don't have to live in a tent. You don't have to flee a war zone. You don't have to register with the UN to be a refugee. But that's what he told us earlier this year. That was the first excuse they gave. They're not refugees because they're not living in tents. They haven't fled from a war. They aren't registered with the UN. You can't just do this. People don't just take refugees. Well, he was wrong about all that, and he forgets all about that. Now he comes to something else. Stupid stuff. The man is just not very bright. Not very bright. Lamola is referring to refugees as defined and protected under the 1951 Refugee Convention International Agreement and its 1967 follow-up protocol. Now, these treaties define a refugee as someone with a well-founded fear of persecution for reasons of race, religion, nationality, political opinion, or membership in a particular social group. So, Ronald Lamola must be making the argument that white South Africans have no fear that they are unsafe in their hearth and home. Really? Edward Neumeister? Brendan Horner? Shall we continue with an endless list of victims attacked, murdered, tortured because of their race? Yeah. 4% of people in private sector with companies more than 50 employees can be white. That's it. White males, only 4%. That's not persecution based on race. That's not persecution based on race. Not a very bright individual. And this really doesn't do anything to advance U.S. relations. In fact, this is an intentional effort to sabotage it. I don't understand how stupid these officials are in South Africa. They really are that stupid. In the words of Neil de Beer, Chris, they are that stupid. They really are. Really are. I talked about the torture, Charles. I just said torture. Unbelievable. Well, they're not nobody. Kali Creel does, but they ignore him. Yep. And also I've heard Peter Groenewald talk about it when he's head of that party. So, Ronald Lamola calls Donald Trump a white supremacist on top of Ibrahim Rasool. So we have two very stupid people who are in very high positions of authority in a very misleading, dishonest party that has destroyed South Africa and looking for people to blame. So you'll notice a trend for the past 18 months, or the past 12 months, I should say, since January. There has been very little reference to Jan van Riebeck, very little reference to Henry Verwoerd, John Forster. Apartheid still gets named because it's easy. It's a big blanket statement. But everything is now Donald Trump's fault. The 34 million black South Africans live in abject poverty, Donald Trump's fault. The 50 million rand spent for a football field that has no football field, no stands, Donald Trump's fault. The 18 children and toddlers who starved to death in Port Elizabeth because the ANC government there failed to disperse funds in the child feeding program, Donald Trump's fault. The collapsing infrastructure, Donald Trump's fault. It's all Donald Trump's fault because apparently, according to Ronald Lamola, he's a white supremacist. And obviously, from sitting in Washington, he controls all the events in the Republic of Kazakhstan. Did I say Kazakhstan? I meant South Africa. Wow. Well, concerns grow over the Palestinians. They're still running the story, even though we've proven that it's all bull squirt. Concerns grow over Palestinian arrivals in South Africa, but not for the reason you think. Not because people don't want Palestinians there, which is the case, but because they were treated so poorly. Look at all these idiots showing up with Palestinian flags in South Africa. You see this? These are not people who want to be part of your country, whether it's Germany, the United States, Canada, Jordan, or South Africa. They want to colonize and dominate you and sing the praises of a country that doesn't exist. A country with racist, xenophobic, anti-Jewish, anti-Christian leaders who want to terrorize and murder people. This is what they associate themselves with. Gays for Gaza. Humanitarian organization Gift of Givers stepped in to accommodate the arrivals. Dr. Suleiman, founder of Gift of Givers, expressed concern about the circumstance in which the Palestinians were brought to South Africa. He said the organization does not yet know who arranged for the flight. But we know that the plane that came from Kenya to South Africa was chartered by Global Aviation. He added that Global Aviation manages Lyft, and he said it was linked to the arrival of previous group. So we don't know the relationship between Israel and this company. Why would you suppose there's a relationship between Israel and the company? What's your relationship to Israel and the company Gift of Givers? What's your relationship to Israel? I mean, why do you assume there's a relationship between Israel? That's just nonsensical. Where do you get that from? Now, this is comical. They actually write this in the same story. Is this actually journalism? Who wrote this? This is Jerry Cupido. Jerry Cupido. Looks like a woman with a guy's name. Okay. Anyway, Jerry Cupido. You actually wrote this in the story. Listen to this. This is a news story in the Independent Line. In an interview with Al Jazeera, Naeem Jinnah from the Civil Society Coalition said they were told by refugees they'd board a bus in Gaza, crossed through the Karam Shalom crossing, and were taken to Ramon Airfield before flying to South Africa. Okay, that's fine. That's news. Now, listen to this. It doesn't attribute this comment unless it's to Naeem. It's clear who's behind this, he said. It's an organization called Al-Majid Europe. They have relations with Israelis and suspected relations with the Shabak, Israeli intelligence services. Jinnah told the broadcaster that passengers paid $1,500 to $5,000 on a website to leave. Okay. So these people from Gaza don't know how they got there. They're being trafficked. They went there against their will. But in the same story, you tell us they spent $1,500 to $5,000 to get out of Gaza. They chose to leave. They left willingly. They left of their own volition. Yet you're running stories of Israel kicking people out of Gaza and smuggling them out and dumping them places. Do you see how stupid these stories are? It doesn't even make any sense. Is it 21-0 now? Yeah, I've got Scotland on in the background. I'm behind. Hang on, my video went behind. Yeah, it's 21-0. Yep. Well, I picked Scotland to win this one, so at least I'll get 5 out of 8 this weekend. Because I had 3 misfires yesterday. Argentina's on the prowl now. Oh, they're going to get a try. Unless he can catch him. Oh, he did catch him. And they knocked it on at the 3-meter line. Argentina was about to try, and they knocked it on. Oh, well. David Furry, welcome. Thank you for your subscription, for being a member for 8 months. Appreciate that. Yeah, so these people apparently were trafficked and went there against their will. But the thing is, they paid to do that. They paid to do that. Like the criminal alien invaders who enter America, courtesy of coyotes who smuggle them into this country for thousands of dollars. They paid. They chose. They went of their own volition. Yet you're saying that they've been somehow trafficked by the Israelis. It doesn't pass the common sense test. Just utter nonsense. Hail, heavy rain, and damaging winds predicted in the summertime as level 9 weather warning downgraded to level 6 for Gauteng. South African Weather Service issued a level 6 warning for severe thunderstorms over northern Gauteng and western Limpopo with a high risk of damaging winds and heavy downpours and hail. Well, get your car in a garage. Well, congratulations to South Africa. People are excited today as the Standard & Poor's and Moody's have upgraded the credit ratings for South Africa. After 2 decades in the wilderness, South Africa has been upgraded from junk bond status to junk bond status. South Africa's credit rating upgraded for the first time in 2 decades. Standard & Poor's Global Ratings raised status of the continent's most industrialized nation to 2 notches below investment grade. You heard the key phrase there, below investment grade, which makes it a junk bond. Yes, high risk. The agency upgraded its foreign currency sovereign credit rating for Africa's most industrialized nation from BB to BB minus on Friday, 2 notches below investment grade. The local currency rating is also increased to a notch to BB plus. The improvement underscores a turnaround under President Ramaphosa's government from constant rolling blackouts and crises in his African National Congress just a few years ago to structural reforms and the advent of the National Coalition. Excuse me? Thank you, Loretta. I'm confused. The end of constant rolling blackouts. But in fact, power is cut out all the time in South Africa. They just don't report it anymore. They don't report it. My viewers come here all the time and have to go off air because the power just got cut. Power gets cut all over South Africa at the time. It's not quite the disaster that it was, but it's still a mess. Let's see. They've upgraded the credit ratings for a country that is in debt, that has no money, that is borrowing money from the IMF to survive, a country where the infrastructure is collapsing, the rails are destroyed. I've seen them firsthand. I've got video evidence of it to show you how the rails have been stripped. They're not in use anymore in Northwest Province. A country with 8.5 million people with HIV, a country with one of the highest rates of tuberculosis on the planet, a country with 18 ferrochrome smelters. One ferrochrome smelter. The other 17 are out of business, and this one's about to close. A country with 30% tariffs from its most important and most valued trading partner. Yeah, and jobs shedding left and right. A country with over 40% unemployment. What are these structural reforms that the Standard & Poor's talks about? I'd like to know who the analysts are that cover South Africa. They're not very bright. The structural reforms that they're talking about, well, let's see. There's the abrogation of property rights and theft of private property. That does really well for investors. People always flock to countries where governments steal land from people. It's a proven technique. Look how much money poured into the Soviet Union by Western investors after it began stealing land from Ukrainian farmers. The kulaks, yes, remember that? That went really well in the 1930s. The 10 million Ukrainians starving to death, not dying, starving to death. What an agonizing way to die of starvation. Your last calorie can suck out of your emaciated body and you die knowing you starve because of the communists. Yes, so, yes, Yeah, that sounds like it went really well. So expropriation without compensation, that's a structural reform. National health insurance, the Sovietization, the communization, the socialization, the theft of the private sector medical industry. Yeah, that's going to go very well. That's going to go very well. Thank you, Kathleen Anderson, for becoming a member. Yeah, there's no country on earth without debt. That's actually not true. Not true, Teresa. There are a handful of countries that are in the black. When you say no debt, I mean, that's a silly statement. I'm not attacking you. Thank you for the 70 rand, but that's a silly statement. There's debt and there's ability to service debt. There's junk bond status, which means you don't have the ability to service your debt. Hence, you pay astronomically high interest rates because you're higher risk. Countries borrow money every day. So yes, your point is valid that there's no country without debt. But there are many countries that are in the black that have more cash on hand than they have debt. So, not aware of any power outages in the Western Cape. Okay, well, I guess you don't live in Northwest or in Mpumalanga or Gauteng. Vatican has no debt. Luxembourg has no debt. No appreciable debt. Mauritius has no appreciable debt. Norway has no appreciable debt. To my knowledge, Iceland doesn't either. I could look and see, but that could be stand for correction. Also, so back to where I was at before the disruption there. So, national health insurance. That's a structural reform. 3% black tax, that's a structural reform. Demanding the corporations give 3% of their after-tax profit to black entrepreneurs. That's going to go over really well. Yeah, those are your structural reforms, ladies and gentlemen. Those are your structural reforms. South Africa has junk bond status, and they're excited about it. South Africa eyes its first ratings upgrade in nearly 2 decades. Thank you, Mark V8. That's the point. They can't service the debt. That's why it's junk bond status. I have debt. I'm not wealthy. I have a mortgage for my home. But I have the ability to pay off my debt if I want to. Like that. I can pay off my debt. But I choose not to liquidate my assets. And I pay the debt because I pay lower interest on the debt than I make off the market. So that's using money wisely. South Africa's not using money wisely. Not using money wisely. South Africa could secure its first credit rating upgrade in nearly 2 decades on Friday when S&P Global delivers its latest sovereign rating decision, which they did. And it got upgraded. Yay! Fitch welcomes South Africa's fiscal shift as MTBPS targets debt stabilization. So they are upgrading their standing on South Africa based on comments coming from the finance ministry, not on actual things happening. Not on actual things happening. They're not actually looking at events. They're not looking at what's happened or transpired in South Africa. What they're looking at, ladies and gentlemen, what they're looking at is the words coming from Enoch Gondwana, which I'm not refuting, but if you think Enoch Gondwana's promises that the ANC is going to follow his plan and adhere to it is a justification for improving the credit ratings of South Africa, then why don't you do it every year? Every year we hear the same story in South Africa. We're going to do this. We're going to create 1 million jobs. We've got the trainings program for kids. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We're going to return land to our people. Yes, every year we hear the same sad story from the South African Finance Ministry in their midterm budget statement and their annual budget statement and from Cyril Ramaphosa. Every single year. Every single year. So why now? Why now, just days before the G20 summit, does S&P's upgrade the rating? Was it the time? Is it the time they do it? If it was, okay. But I don't know if there's a set timetable to Moody's and Standard & Poor's changing the ratings. My experience in the past is when a country goes south, Moody's and Standard & Poor's don't wait for the country to collapse. They issue credit ratings as soon as they become applicable. So funny that this happens now. Funny that the CNN racist documentary comes out now. Funny how all this comes out days before this G20 summit. Smell a rat? I smell an entire shipload of rats. An entire shipload of rats. Wait for 6 months from now when Moody's and S&P quietly downgrade South Africa's rating back to BB. You watch. You watch 6 months from now. 6 months from now. You want to talk about collusion in the media? You want to talk about collusion in the financial sector? Look no further than what's happening in South Africa in advance of the G20 summit. South Africa will not pander to the U.S. Who cares? No one asked you to pander to the U.S. By Lizika Tandwa and Andisiwe Makiana. South African government will not travel to the U.S. to hand over the G20 presidency, it said. Who asked them to do that? Nobody asked them to come here. What? See, now they're just making stories up. South Africa will not come to America. No one asked you. No one invited you. We don't need you to hand it over. You think the G20 presidency only transfers when some twit hands a piece of paper to another twit, and that's how it happens? The U.S. will either have to come to South Africa or host the next meeting of heads of state without an official handover. Well, it won't matter. The next meeting will be after it's occurred, so you're not going to do the event after it's occurred. This is just stupid. This is just stupid. Interview with the Sunday Times, South Africa's G20 Sherpa ambassador Zolisa Mabhongo said the U.S. will have to come to South Africa or proceed without a handover. There's nothing that South Africa will do. We will not be going to the U.S. to hand over. This will simply assume their presidency and inform the world what is on their menu. It is what it is. We are in this situation. That is how we'll manage it. Well, nobody cares, sweetheart. Nobody cares. We don't ask you to come to America. In fact, you're not even invited to Miami next year. Why don't you stay in South Africa? How's that? How's that for? How you like them apples? How you like them apples? Yeah. These are just stories made up. Banjo String says South Africa will only pander to Palestine, Iran, Cuba, China, etc. Stupid people. Well, in the midst of all of this nonsense, South Africa's government says it's continuing to talk to the U.S. Really? Really? Once again, a senior South African official has called Donald Trump a white supremacist and America racist. And you want to negotiate with us? Are you stupid? Imagine if South Africa was this abusive and aggressive towards China. The country would fold up its tent. There'd be no place to send your coal or your natural resources for pennies on the dollar. The government remains committed to engaging with the U.S. administration despite its false assertions about South Africa. Let me show you how this plays out. Yes, we're working with the Americans. Do you have an ambassador in Washington? No, we have no ambassador in Washington. Have you appointed a trade representative to negotiate these 30% tariffs to a lower level? No, we don't have a trade representative. Do you currently have a team working in Washington with the U.S. trade representative or with the U.S. Department of the Commerce? We have no team in the U.S. But you say you're negotiating with the U.S. Yes, we're negotiating. We call them a racist every day, and we talk about their white supremacy in the media, and we lie about them. And then we claim that legal refugees in America aren't refugees, but the Palestinians who arrived here illegally are. Do you think that's a self-defeating program? I mean, you would think that people who you insult wouldn't want to do business with you, or maybe I'm missing something. Oh, no. See, you don't understand the power of white liberal guilt. Yes, white liberal guilt, and the fact that we own the media. All the media believe in us because they're all from the same cloth. Yes, they're all fellow travelers. So we can say whatever we want. We can make up whatever lies we like, and it'll work. I mean, honestly, folks, honestly.
Stupid people should wear signs, neon bright, so we can find a way to dodge their tangled mess, avoid their chaos more, say less. Wear a sign.
Oh, that's it. I'm sorry. I nearly regurgitated my breakfast. I mean, Ilhan Omar and Fikile Mabalula in the same microsecond. That's too much to take. I'm sorry. I have to end the song there. Yeah, that's I can't. Those two in the same breath. That's just toxic, to say the very least. So, speaking of stupid people, let's go on to talk about some terribly stupid decisions in the op-ed columns of South Africa, folks. Let's just get to that now. I mean, there's some really stupid stuff but this is all part of the G20 push because South Africa's relevance on the world stage disappears completely. South Africa, which is relevant on the world stage for many, many years, people ignored what's going on, including the murder of people in rural South Africa, the 27,000 murders per year. People completely ignored the 8.5 million HIV positive people in South Africa, most of them owing to their conduct and their behavior, not because they had bad circumstance or misfortune. The world ignored that for years. When South Africa found relevance by taking an illegitimate genocide case to the International Court of Justice. Now, mind you, South Africa did not become a friend of the court and file an amicus brief to join with the Gambia when it took Myanmar to the International Court of Justice in the groundbreaking genocide case where they were attacking the Rohingya. South Africa didn't pay attention to that. Also, South Africa has made no comment whatsoever about the genocidal campaign against the Uyghurs in China. South Africa has nothing to say about that. South Africa has nothing to say about Sudan. South Africa is not involved in negotiations to end the conflict in Sudan. The United States is. The United States has come up with a peace agreement and a ceasefire in Darfur and Western Sudan. South Africa not present. South Africa not involved in finding peace in Somalia. The United States has funded the AMISOM mission and its successor for decades, trying to end that conflict. The United States has trained troops, including the Somali National Force, and I know because I was their paymaster. I signed their paychecks in Uganda and provided resources to train the Somali National Force. But South Africa was nowhere to be found. Nowhere to be found. South Africa is nowhere to be found in the Sahel conflict, in Burkina Faso, in Niger, in Mali, having nothing to say to protect black Africans. But they sure have a lot to say about Gaza. And that's how they search for relevance. They search for relevance. And now they have the G20 handed to them, and they spent the year talking about how the G20, which exists to promote the economic interest of its member states, is supposed to now become the debt relief club, the deadbeats club. We must forgive the debt. We must have sustainability and Ubuntu with the people who call us white supremacist and racist. Seriously? Seriously? Well, let's read some of the op-ed pieces that came out today about what's going on with Donald Trump and South Africa. Again, ladies and gentlemen, Donald Trump doesn't give two hoots about South Africa. It doesn't occupy more than a microsecond of his day. Trust me. Justice Malala says South Africans must unite against Trump's vengeful campaign. Vengeful campaign. I'm sorry, folks. A vengeful campaign? You want a vengeful campaign? Look at Iran's nuclear facilities. That's a vengeful campaign. You want a vengeful campaign? Look at narco traffickers in the Caribbean. That's a vengeful campaign. Is America doing that in South Africa? No. Has America applied sanctions to South Africa? No. Has America banned South Africa from anything? No. In fact, America facilitated the ANC's recent IMF loan. We made that possible with the largest voting share. We are the fools that loaned the ANC $1.4 billion again. Yet, vengeful campaign. I'm sorry, Justice Malala. This is just bullshit. You are just spewing bullshit. And it smells to high heaven. If you were surprised by U.S. President Trump's announcement that no American official would attend the G20, then you haven't been paying attention. As I've said for a year now, there's little South Africa can do about the president's irrational, tantrum-driven president. Really. South Africa is one of the few places that Trump can identify on a map in Africa, and he has been on a campaign to hurt the country since its inauguration. What campaign is that? Donald Trump took office on January 20th. He stopped aid. So we hurt your country by not giving our hard-earned money to you so that you can call us white supremacist and racist. I'm sorry, Justice Malala. Your logic makes no sense, brother. None whatsoever. G20 was too good a chance to pass up, and so he realized that sending J.D. Vance would be an acknowledgement that South Africa is indeed a player in global affairs. He pulled the plug on all U.S. officials' attendance. Had he not thought about it before Friday, he had not strategized or planned. He just posted on social media, and his minions in the administration fell over each other to show him how loyal they could be by repeating his falsehoods that Afrikaners being killed and slaughtered. If he cared about slaughter, he would say something about Sudan, but he won't. I'm sorry, Justice Malala. He does say things about Sudan. Are you dumb? Look, this guy is not that stupid. So what's going on with Justice Malala? Has he been bought and paid by the ANC too? Are they paying his salary now? I mean, honestly, these are ANC talking points. Donald Trump has talked about Sudan. He's had Sudanese officials in the White House. We fund the government of South Sudan. We have called Sudan out for what it is. We are one of the few global powers that have been calling out Sudan since the beginning. Justice Malala is just talking bullshit now out his ass. In addition to that, where is South Africa and Sudan? Did they participate in the multilateral talks led by the United States to get a ceasefire between the RSF and Sudanese forces? No, they didn't. No, they didn't. This is just bullshit. He needs to divert attention from the U.S. government shutdown and the Epstein scandal. Justice Malala, here's a hint, brother. You might have missed it. You might have missed it, but here's a little hint. The lockdown is over, genius. It ended last week. Yeah, there's no lockdown. And the Epstein files have been released 4 times. 4 times. Wow. For South Africa, 2 things reflect on. The first is that trying to appease Trump will not work. They're not trying to appease Trump. They called him a white supremacist. Are you serious? Justice Malala, trying to appease Trump. Trying to appease him. Ibrahim Rasool called him white supremacist. Now Ronald Lamola calls him white supremacist. And Cyril Ramaphosa ran around with his fake nonsense. Vaccine apartheid, vaccine apartheid. Are you serious? Are you serious? Wow. The second reflection for South Africa is that when Trump issued his Truth Social post, there were whoops of delight among many South African peddlers of falsehoods of white genocide. Aha, see. The leftist brings up the term white genocide. The leftists. The left. And now they're linking it to persecution of Afghanistan. There is persecution of Afghanistan. There's persecution of colors. There's persecution of Indians. Yeah, there's persecution of South Africans. There's no doubt about that. There's no denying it. They can sit there and deny it all day. But now they're trying to link the two to discredit persecution because they know that that's the basis for refugee status, which they're trying to discredit. But what persecution are Palestinians facing? There's no well-founded fear of persecution. Israel is not persecuting Palestinians in countries they don't control. They don't control Gaza. They don't control Judea and Samaria. That's controlled by the Palestinian Authority and Hamas. There's no persecution coming from Israel. From Hamas, sure. They murder people in the streets, just execute them. Yep. Trump supporters refuse to acknowledge they lost the 2020 election. Okay, that's just a blanket asinine statement. They failed for 5 years to produce a shred of evidence that Trump was robbed, as they claim. Actually, that's not true. The evidence was produced before the election. I produced the evidence before the election. The governor, the Secretary of State, Kelly Bukvar, and the Attorney General, now the governor, fraudulently announced that the state would violate its own election law, which wasn't even a year old. Act 77 wasn't a year old, and they announced they're going to violate it by putting drop boxes all over the state, which is illegal, by accepting ballots after the election day, which is illegal, and by not having signatures or dates on them, which is illegal, all of which were required under Pennsylvania law. That was 11 months old when it was 9 months old when they announced it, 11 months old when it was executed, because it was inconvenient. So they encourage fraud. Therefore, there's the proof right there. That's proof. Whether there was a fraudulent ballot or not is not germane. They encourage fraud. Yeah, so that's just one example. There's dozens of examples. So, Justice Malala, you don't know what you're talking about. You're just parroting stories. I've got documentary evidence of events in Georgia, events elsewhere. And I didn't even claim any of that stuff. This all came after the fact, except the pre-one, which I told you about. And what does that have to do with Donald Trump and South Africa? Nothing. When South Africa supports such a man, what does it say about them? Well, when South Africa supports such a man who believes in the equality of life for all people and uplifting everyone, like Donald Trump does, it says that they're good people. In the days before he renewed his attacks in South Africa, there's no attack. That's not an attack. So let me ask you this question, ladies and gentlemen. Why, Justice Malala, is it an attack for Donald Trump to say nobody's coming to the country? Mexico's not coming. China's not coming. Russia's not coming. Argentina's not coming. Japan's not coming. Are you attacking them for not coming to the G20? No, you're not. No, you're not. There's very little to admire about Trump. His failings, from his claims of grabbing women by their private parts. Actually, this, you can't take this person seriously. Trump never stated that. Never stated that. Listen to the audio. He never said that. That's not what he said. That's not what he said. He said that women are so desperate for attention in Hollywood and to get on film that they'll do anything. He said, I could grab them by the private parts and they would still come back. He never said he grabbed anybody by the private parts. You're a liar. You're an absolute liar. The audio's there, buddy. The audio's there. Wow. South Africans who admire this man need to know that most of their fellow citizens can see clearly for who they are. Really? Good people? As Trump's masked men separate children from their parents. See, this is just bullshit. Masked men separate children from their parents. If you get pulled over for drinking while intoxicated and your children in the car, where do you think your children are going that night? In a jail cell with you or children's services? Children's services. Unbelievable. Release the Springsteen files? Nobody gives a crap about Bruce Springsteen. He's an anti-American scumbag. Yep. So let's go to Barney Mbotobuti. Trump knows he's lying about us, but we've been our own worst enemy. As Mark Twain once said, no amount of evidence will ever persuade an idiot. Yeah, well, we can't persuade Justice Malala or Ronnie Lamola. Jeffrey Epstein, the disgraced American financier and convicted silence checks, he's dead. He's dead. Had some choice words for Donald Trump in a slew of emails released by the Congress this week. Epstein, who made his millions as his financial consultant, used his connections to cultivate an elite circle and was found to have procured young girls who were sexually abused by him and his friends. Despite a friendship spanning years and the existence of pictures of the two men together, Trump consistently denied any involvement with the girls. But his name comes up in more than 20,000 pages of documents. Trump knew about the girls, Epstein says in one email, as the dog hasn't barked. That's not what he said. He didn't say Trump knew about the girls. Now you're just putting words in the email that didn't exist. Anyway, Trump is taking too much of our time and emotions. He has been a bee in the bonnet about South Africa. I'm not sure there's a country under the sun that he loathes more. He doesn't really care about South Africa, and he's not a bee in your bonnet. Trump did not sign expropriation without compensation, abrogating property rights and violating the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act. That was Cyril Ramaphosa, and he even lied about it. He did it in December and waited until 30 days expired so that the parliament couldn't refute the law. Yeah, no. So that wasn't Trump that did that. No, it wasn't Trump that did that. That was South Africa. It wasn't Trump who called black leaders in South Africa black supremacists and racist. That wasn't Trump. He's never done that. That was Ibrahim Rasool. That's who did that. It's South Africa who precipitated this crisis, Barney. You're smoking something here that just really isn't healthy for you. He summoned all the powers at his disposal to throw dirt at us. Really? I seriously doubt that anybody in the U.S. intelligence community spends more than 5 minutes thinking about South Africa at this point. We summoned? Is the Sixth Fleet parked off the Cape Town harbor? Have we cut you out of the SWIFT banking system? Did we stop the IMF loan? This is just bullshit. Total bullshit. But he seems to be indecisive about G20. When Trump first announced he'd boycott the meeting, he didn't say boycott. He said he's not going. A boycott is different. There was a collective wringing of hands and gnashing teeth from the government as though the sky was about to collapse. Cyril Ramaphosa with the delegation cobbled together in a hurry, hot-footed to Washington with the intention of not only debunking the genocide canard. Well, why would you debunk something you made up? You leftists are the ones talking about white genocide. No one else. No one else is talking about it. You leftists are doing it. Only to walk into a well-laid trap intended to humiliate him. A well-laid trap. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Donald Trump wasn't playing the video until Ramaphosa lied to him. Ramaphosa tried to go with his song and dance and thought that Donald Trump is as dumb as people in politics in South Africa, and you could just tell him whatever you want, or the Europeans. You just tell him whatever you want, and because there's white liberal guilt, he's going to sit there and listen to it. Thank you, Leah, for your subscription. It doesn't work like that. A well-laid trap. Ramaphosa asked for the meeting. Trump accommodated his schedule. And then nobody in the crowd other than J.D. Vance opened their mouth. You should have seen the look on Elon Musk's face. He was ready to launch. Unbelievable. They were told that J.D. Vance would lead the delegation. Now Trump, the great prevaricator, has changed his mind. Nobody's coming. Really? So the Japanese prime minister, who's now been prime minister for almost a month, doesn't have permission to come. Did the previous prime minister have permission to come? So where are your complaints, Barney, about Japan? Javier Milei is not coming. Where are your complaints about Argentina? Xi Jinping is not coming to this big summit for its colonial, outpost, South Africa. Why are you not upset about Xi Jinping? Vladimir Putin is not coming. We know why, because you won't arrest him, and you shouldn't, because it's not a legitimate warrant. Yeah. Trump, though, should be a seminal lesson for the ANC. After 1994 elections, the world was our oyster. Yeah, and you squandered it. The international community was happy for us and wanted nothing for us but to succeed. We were the poster child the world would want to see of itself, of people resolving their differences through peaceful means and then proceeding to make a serious attempt to live together. Except it wasn't serious. We threw that away. International goodwill was squandered by a party still tethered to long discredited ideological shibboleths. We squandered capital through frolicking with murderous autocrats like Vladimir Putin and protecting rogues like Robert Mugabe and Muammar Gaddafi while giving the middle finger to those who could help us grow our economy and create jobs for our people. And of course, we trashed our brand by looting and mismanaging the state. Phrases such as white monopoly capital and Washington consensus have come to express our contempt for the creators of wealth. We became too arrogant and entitled. We came to believe our own propaganda that we punched above our weight. We forgot that ideology is now passé. What people need is food, jobs, and yes, potholes filled. While his predecessors may have indulged us, Trump, painful as it may be, is simply reminding us to be cognizant of which side our bread is buttered. Well, that part you got right, Barney. But the rest, that's just sad to see. So sad to see. Anyway, so let's talk about the good news for South Africa. Let me search high and low for that. Eskom plans to build 14,000 kilometers of new transmission lines at an estimated cost of 440 billion rand. The electricity minister said nuclear energy will remain a cornerstone of the country's baseload supply as it transitions to cleaner sources. Nuclear energy will remain a cornerstone. Yet, Coburg provides a fraction of the electricity of South Africa. Coal is the cornerstone of your electricity market. Coal. What do you mean nuclear will remain? You're not building any nuclear power plants. Eskom plans to build all those lines. It also wants to connect people in remote rural areas. Part of the problem why we have not achieved universal access is the cost associated with connecting people because we have to build a backbone to infrastructure, which is transmission lines. But if we have this technology, you can locate it closer to where people are. It's going to help us participate in nuclear industrialization program. What? Koji said to Ramakopa, what technology? The technology exists. It's existed for 100 years. We've been building nuclear power plants for 65 years. There's no new technology. What are you talking about? Transmission lines are new technology? Putting transmission lines near people means you can deliver power? Duh! What the hell? Wow. Ramakopa said the updated integrated resource plan confirms that nuclear energy remains essential to supporting the accelerated role of wind and solar. Coburg's license extension adds 20 years of life to the country's only nuclear power plant. He confirmed the environmental approval for a new nuclear site at Doornfontein near Coburg, which has been granted, paving the way for the first 2,400 megawatts of planned 5.2 gigawatts of new nuclear build program. Nuclear program. So the planned expansion to 5.2 gigawatts in an economy that needs 50 gigawatts. That's a little over 10%. So the 10% is your cornerstone, 25% maybe, but 10% is your cornerstone of your power. That's just ludicrous. South Africa's power comes from coal. That's where it comes from. Not painted rocks, from BEE tenders that they're sold to Eskom, but actual coal, not rocks. The nuclear is going to play a very crucial role in ensuring that we address the 600 million people on the continent that don't have access to electricity. Whoa. No. What are you talking about? I'm sorry. Did I miss something here? What did I miss here, folks? Something is just not quite right here. What did I miss? I missed something here. I did. I'm a little confused here. Ramakopa, can you please explain to me what you're talking about? I'm confused. What are you talking about? I mean, honestly, folks, what is this guy smoking? What is this guy smoking? South Africa doesn't have electricity. And you're talking about industrializing the 643 million people on the continent don't. So you're going to deliver electricity to remote villages in the Congo, in Rwanda, in Uganda, in Kenya, in Burkina Faso, in Liberia? What is he smoking? I'm going to read this to you directly as he says it here. This is a quote. The nuclear is going to play a very crucial role in ensuring that we address the 600 million people on the continent that don't have access to electricity, the industrialization of the continent, and the need for us to beneficiate the critical minerals that are going to underpin the decarbonization agenda, which is going to rely on clean baseload technologies. And nuclear is going to feature significantly. So as a country, we are saying we're not going to be left behind. What is he smoking? 5.2 gigawatts of power. 5.2 gigawatts of power. Planned, not in delivery. And even when it gets delivered, that's only 10% of the power that South Africa needs. Never mind Botswana, Namibia, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, Eswatini, Lesotho. And where are the 440 billion rand coming from? Ladies and gentlemen, where is South Africa going to get that money? You know where they're going to get it from? I'll tell you where they're going to get it from. I'll tell you where they're going to get it from. They are going to get that $26 billion from the World Bank and the IMF by making the West feel guilty. Oh, racism, colonialism. Wow. Wow. TJ Potgieter says, have you heard or seen anything about the gas discovery in Mpumalanga region close to Sikoni? Yes, I have, but that's not really a topic for right now. It's not a news story today. Thank you for 35 rand. It doesn't have any effect on our probe, the Special Investigative Unit says about the Mabuyane. So the leader of the Eastern Cape, Premier Oscar Mayubane, apparently is accused of having a fake degree from Fort Hare. he and half a dozen other people. Yeah, yes. But now the court has said they can't investigate. It's an abuse of authority to investigate whether a politician lied and fraudulently got his position appointed as a premier based on stolen valor. Yes, but apparently that's it's abuse of authority by the police to investigate criminal activity. Yeah. So the courts have determined that it's an abuse of authority for the police to investigate criminal activity. You can't make this stuff up. You cannot make this stuff up, folks. They're saying that it's an abuse of authority for the police to investigate criminal activity. I'm not making this up. It's true. It's true. Wow. Well, folks, important information for folks who are leaving South Africa, whether you go on your own or you're a refugee, you still owe money to SARS. Yep. New rules have come into effect in October from the South African Revenue Service and the South African Reserve Bank, and you have got to comply. Even if you emigrated years ago, your money may be stuck in South Africa. Your paperwork doesn't meet the new rules. Even though you've been getting it all along, now you can't. First, you have to have a notice of non-resident tax status confirming that you have been ceased to be a South African tax resident. Second, a tax compliance status approval for international transfer. PIN verifies that taxes are up to date. The AIT process from April 23 now aligns with SARB procedures. So good luck with that, folks. The bottom line here is that South Africa won't let you get your money out of the country because they're going to keep it, falsely claiming that you're not entitled to it. Wow. Well, police are hunting for the suspects after charred remains have been found in Inanda. KZN police have launched an investigation after 4 people were found burnt to death inside 2 cars at Umtata area in Inanda. Police responded to reports of 2 vehicles which were burnt, and upon arrival at the scene, police found 1 body burnt beyond recognition inside a Nissan MP200. 3 other bodies were found inside a Toyota Rumian, also burnt beyond recognition. Police also found 3 carcasses of cattle next to the MP200 vehicle. The motive of the killings is unknown at this stage. However, police suspect the incident may be related to stock theft. Ladies and gentlemen, I've told you for a long time that people disappear in South Africa all of the time. People who commit invasions and attacks and theft, they just wind up in wells. Victims were found set alight, and preliminary investigation suggests the incident is linked to vigilantism. Yep. Police launched their investigation after finding the charred bodies. A total of 7 charred bodies have been found in 2 separate instances in KZN. Life is cheap in South Africa, folks. Yeah, it's Trump's fault. Yeah, Trump did that. Well, the UK giant has its biggest presence in South Africa. I'm talking about Virgin Active, South Africa's largest gym brand. It all started with a phone call from Nelson Mandela. Yep. Richard Branson, the billionaire founder of Virgin Airlines, stated that the business model is centered on taking big and bold risks, which they did. Mandela phoned Branson, directly asking him to help save 4,000 jobs across the struggling health and racket club chain in South Africa. And they did. And now they're just massive. They got a network with over 131 locations. There's only 31 in the UK, 40 in Italy, and 22 in the Asia Pacific. Namibia has 2, and Botswana has 1, but South Africa has 131. Wow. Virgin Active's ownership structure changed in 2015 when Brait purchased 80% stake in the company for $682 million. It's a Johannesburg-listed investment company backed by billionaire Christo Wiese. So basically, Virgin Active is owned by South Africans. No longer really owned by Richard Branson. Well, the Springboks are sending reinforcements after the endless red cards and yellow cards and this card and that card. Front row reinforcements joined the Bucks in Ireland. Yes, Bongi Mbanabi has been called back up, and he will be much needed. Yep. And Ntuku Mkunu has also been called up. Bongi is a regular with the Springboks and a well-liked and respected player. Mkunu has just 4 tests to his name. Flames engulf a beloved Hout Bay restaurant, Veld, in a devastating blaze. The Veld restaurant in Hout Bay suffered devastating fire damage Friday while patrons were in the restaurant, forcing temporary closure after flames caused substantial structural damage, including destruction of the roof. No injuries were reported, and the blaze was contained by 5:30 p.m. South Africans are buying residency where? In the safest country in Africa. No, it's not South Africa. It's Mauritius, and I've been telling you that for 6 years. Pam Golding Property Group noted Mauritius has become a popular choice for South Africans seeking safety, stability, and investment opportunities. The Indian Ocean Island has seen growing demand for property from South Africans who view it as a secure place to live or hold assets. You know what, folks? I think I'm going to go to Mauritius on my next trip to South Africa. I think I'm going to go to Mauritius. Why not? South Africans are going there. It's time for me to finally get to Mauritius. I've never been there. Yes, Rossi has announced his starting lineup of 11 players. Iran seized a fuel tank in the Middle East waterway. Oh, that's not good. Iran says was carrying unauthorized goods, comes amid unresolved nuclear issues between Tehran and the West. Iran seized a Cyprus-registered fuel tanker Friday, its first such interdiction in the Strait of Hormuz in more than a year. The seizure of the tanker Talara, which was carrying diesel fuel from the UAE to Singapore, comes amid a still unresolved standoff between Tehran and the West. Our rapid reaction units tracked and seized the vessel following a judicial order to confiscate its cargo, says the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. Wow. U.S. Central Command is aware of the incident and monitoring the situation. What gives the Iranians the right to confiscate oil from the UAE? China escalates its feud with Japan on the island patrols and warnings to citizens. Notice how China puts China Coast Guard in English on their ships. China sent Coast Guard ships near disputed islands and warned travelers and students about safety risk in Japan. Also notice they use red, white, and blue for their ships, just like American Coast Guard. The escalation is over comments on Taiwan by Japan's new prime minister. The escalation came after the new prime minister, Sanae Takaichi, warned about Taiwan. On Friday, the Chinese embassy in Tokyo warned its citizens against traveling to Japan because of what it described as serious safety risk. What safety risk? Japan is very safe. Very safe. New rare earths plant in Estonia is getting attention. The Estonian factory was built in 500 days, marks the big boost of the continent's production, but it's only a start to satisfying soaring demand. Europe is trying to get itself off the global rare earths map, or get itself on the map, and a new facility on Russia's border is opening bid. The city of Narva, where famous battles took place with Charles XII. In Estonia, once a textiles hub for Russian Empire, is now host to Europe's biggest production plant for the kinds of rare earth magnets needed in electric cars and wind turbines. It's part of Europe's push to secure a foothold in the global supply chain dominated by China. The new factory is run by NEO. Yep, built by Canada's Neo Performance Materials and financed in part by the European Union. The factory is expected to begin commercial deliveries to companies including German car parts supplier Robert Bosch next year. Even though the new factory's initial planned capacity 2,000 metric tons of permanent magnetic material, it's just a fraction of what analysts estimate European manufacturers need. European demand is forecast to be 45,000 metric tons by 2030, and they're only going to get up to 5,000. U.S. has much more in the pipeline. Companies are currently planning to build more than 40,000 metric tons capacity in the U.S. by 2030. Wow. So U.S. is way ahead of Europe on the rare earths, but still behind China. Storm Claudia has killed 3 in Portugal and caused flooding in Britain. Violent weather brought on by Storm Claudia killed 3 people and injured dozens, Portugal authorities said Saturday, while in Britain, rescue workers were organizing evacuations due to heavy flooding in Wales and England. Portugal and parts of neighboring Spain have faced days of extreme conditions brought on by Storm Claudia, which had reached parts of Britain and Ireland by Saturday. Britain turns to old army barracks to house asylum seekers. Local governments fear being left with the cost, but former border chief Tony Smith warns the UK has nowhere to put them. With public appetite waning for accommodating new immigrant arrivals in their communities, British authorities are looking at disused military barracks as an alternative to costly hotel rooms. Yeah. We can't send them back. Between 2018 and 2024, citizens in 6 countries, Iran, Afghanistan, Iraq, Albania, Syria, and Eritrea, made up 70% of the people illegally crossing in small boats. 168,000 people arrived in the UK via small boats since 2018. That is way under the actual number. Way under the actual number. That's the ones they saw. That is not the number of people slipped in the country. It's a lot higher than that. Much higher than that. The United States and Switzerland, having reached a trade agreement lowering tariffs to just 15%, could bolster manufacturing in America and lower tariffs on Swiss goods. U.S. and Switzerland reached a trade agreement over the weekend, lowering their tariffs from 39 to 15%. U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer said the deal, which includes Liechtenstein, tears down long-standing trade barriers that have held U.S. exporters back and secures billions in new investment on American soil. Switzerland pledged to facilitate $200 billion worth of investment in the U.S., and Liechtenstein, which now face a 15% tariff on goods, pledged $300 million towards American projects. Wow. There you go. And the Swiss said, thanks to President Trump at POTUS for the constructive engagement. That's what the Swiss said. So Swiss barriers to our products are being removed, and we lowered the tariffs. Ukraine's $200 billion lifeline from Europe is being held back by Belgium. Belgian government fears financial fallout, Russia retaliation, and EU plan to fund Kiev using Moscow's money held in Belgium. Yep, the European Union is illegitimately trying to steal Russia's resources and give it to Ukraine. That's not going to end a war. That's just going to keep a war going. Well, Chile is having an election with people on the right getting the most support. But a compulsory voting law could bring a surge of new voters. Yes. Chileans head to the polls in national elections today. The presidential candidates have been striving to outdo one another in promising a harsh crackdown on crime and immigration. Drug traffickers should go to jail or they will go to the cemetery, said one. Wow. Evelyn Matai said bullet or jail. Wow. Franco Parisi, as he deemed drug trafficking narco-terrorism. And a third candidate, Johannes Kaiser, proposed executions for certain crimes. Johannes Kaiser in Chile. Yes, lots of Germans in Latin America. Struggling Venezuelans are focused on day-to-day efforts, but Maduro is stoking a war. Maduro wants a war with the U.S. Ongoing U.S. naval strikes in the Caribbean and talk of an American invasion naturally have Venezuelans on edge, but many who spoke to the Washington Times this weekend say a populace battered by years of chaos and violence under socialist Maduro regime are more worried about day-to-day survival than a conflict with the U.S. Okay, alrighty, you say so. Well, the Trump administration is pulling support for Marjorie Taylor Greene. Republican Visions Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, MTG, Republican of Georgia, said in an interview on Sunday with CNN that she still supports President Trump's administration despite the president's recent criticism of her. Trump appeared to cut ties with her, calling her a traitor and a disgrace after she renewed calls for the release of Jeffrey Epstein files. But that's a part story. It's not just that. She's also made comments about Israel, about Ukraine that are not in line with the president. So they're trying to make it all about Epstein when it's been much broader than that. Federal immigration enforcement begins in Charlotte, North Carolina, only about 40 years too late. In recent days, local Charlotte officials have criticized the surge in immigration enforcement efforts, and I cheer them on. U.S. immigration authorities have surged enforcement operations. Americans should be able to live without fear of violent, criminal, illegal aliens hurting them, their families, or their neighbors, Assistant Homeland Secretary Tricia McLaughlin said. We are surging DHS law enforcement in Charlotte to ensure Americans are safe and public safety threats removed. I would simply prefer you get all the people who have no business in the country out of the country so that wages are not artificially depressed and that we don't have people who are not qualified masons, builders, electricians, plumbers, carpenters, building homes that cost $500,000 and fall apart days after they're sold to unsuspecting purchasers. The Pentagon will withdraw some of its National Guard troops from Chicago and Portland, withdrawing hundreds of National Guard soldiers from Chicago and Portland just weeks after Trump ordered them there over the strenuous objections of state and local authorities. Some 200 California National Guard troops who were sent to Portland and 200 Texas National Guard members sent to Chicago will return to their home states beginning as early as Sunday. They were sent to those cities but never deployed to the streets to assist. So it was a waste of money. Arctic frost, the comprehensive, unconstitutional, illegal misuse of the Justice Department to go after Donald Trump. Legal experts say the sprawling investigation of a 2020 alternative electors criminal conspiracy was an unconstitutional fishing expedition. On the grounds of an election conspiracy investigation, the Department of Justice and FBI under President Joe Biden pursued sensitive and private information on political opponents, including President Trump, his close advisors and lawyers, as well as Republican Congress members and a number of conservative organizations. Codenamed Arctic Frost, the investigation morphed into Special Counsel investigation against Trump in 2023, which was dropped after Trump's reelection. Documents recently released by whistleblowers reveal how nearly 200 secret subpoenas sought documents and communications, including call records of 8 senators from hundreds of Republican individuals and organizations. The probe was open on the premise that it was criminal of the Trump campaign to arrange alternative sets of electors in states where the campaign was challenging the 2020 election results. It's not criminal. That's not illegal. That's not even a criminal act. Subjects corruptly conspired to obstruct the United States Congress certification of 2020 president's election results by submitting fraudulent certificates of electors' votes to the United States government. There are multiple problems with legal theory, according to experts who said the scope and nature of the investigation were highly irregular and potentially unconstitutional. Yep. It was first opened April 13th, 2022 by Timothy Thibault. It appeared to be founded on the premise that whoever raised concerns about 2020 election results was in any way connected to the Trump campaign took part in a conspiracy, noted Hans von Spakovsky, an election law expert and senior legal fellow at the Conservative Heritage Foundation. Consequently, the investigation repeatedly expanded in scope. At opening, the probe targeted the Trump campaign, several individuals associated with roughly 60 alternative electors in Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, and Wisconsin. Already on the 4th of May 2022, the FBI obtained government-issued phones of Trump and Vice President Pence. Neither was officially a target of the investigation, but they sought their phones anyway. Over 400 Republican organizations and individuals were targeted with nearly 200 secret subpoenas. Then they targeted members of Congress, which included Marsha Blackburn, Lindsey Graham, Bill Hagerty, Josh Hawley, Cynthia Lummis, Dan Sullivan, Tommy Tuberville, and Mike Kelly of Pennsylvania from the House. As well as, we know, Scott Perry was targeted. They don't mention him. It's cost him over $1.5 million in legal fees out of his pocket for a fraudulent, unconstitutional investigation. Investigating members of U.S. Congress is direct interference with the legislative branch by the executive branch. I think it raises very serious constitutional issues and problems, particularly because there's no evidence whatsoever that any of those 8 senators and U.S. member of the House had violated any criminal law. Exactly right, says Spakovsky. Compounding the issue was an order by District of Columbia federal judge James Boasberg that kept the subpoena secret from the lawmakers. Yep. It's an absolute violation of federal law. There's a federal statute that specifically states that Senate officers have to be notified. Yep. Title II, U.S. Code 6628. They violated the law. It is time to prosecute the criminals from the Justice Department and the Biden regime who violated the Constitution, and then go after them for what they did to us on social media. Well, the Senate probes the Justice Department effort to thwart FBI investigation into Hillary Clinton's dirty dossier payments. The Senate Judiciary Committee is investigating the Justice Department's efforts to shut down investigation in the Clinton campaign funding the infamous Steele dossier. The committee's chairman, Senator Grassley, said a whistleblower has revealed 2 top officials in the Justice Department's Arctic Frost investigation had earlier played pivotal roles in blocking an FBI probe into Hillary Clinton and her other Democrats. They released email exchanges between unidentified FBI agent and Richard Pilgert, who worked for the Justice Department's Public Integrity Section, and J.P. Cooner, then a lawyer in the U.S. Attorney's Office. The correspondence, which took place in June of 2019, documented Mr. Pilgert and Mr. Cooney slapping down the FBI agent's inquiry about what the agent described as an unambiguous concealment of payments the Democratic National Committee and the Clinton campaign made to finance the anti-Trump dossier compiled by ex-British spy Christopher Steele. Wow. The rot is just so deep. It's so deep. And people who said that this was happening at the time were called conspiracy theorists, and they were silenced. When I brought these issues up, my channel went away. Funny how that happened. Trump pardons Rudy Giuliani and Sidney Powell and others tied to the 2020 so-called fake electors case. Today, President Trump issued... Oh, wait. No, that's last week. Excuse me, last week. Yeah, last week. Last week, he issued preemptive pardons to 77 people charged with attempting to overturn the results of the 2020 election. Yep, including Rudolph Giuliani, Sidney Powell, and John Eastman. I didn't cover that story last week because we had other events. That's why I'm mentioning it today, just to show my objectivity and my balanced nature of my news reporting. 506 people currently here, just 418 likes. What's wrong with your like button? Hit the like button.
That was easy.
The like button on the TV's not working. Of course, YouTube doesn't want you to like my videos. I didn't win a wooden spoon. What are you talking about? You're mistaken. You're mistaken. I didn't win the wooden spoon unless it just got updated. Is the game over now? Oh, I did. Argentina came back and won that game? Are you serious? No way. I did. I probably got the spoon because of this. Scotland let me down. Scotland was rolling in that game. They lost it. Oh, my goodness. Wow. I got the wooden spoon. Well. I really didn't get it right this week, did I? I got 4 wrong and 4 right. Well, of course it's wrong, Mark. Somebody's being a smartass. What's the point of mentioning that? I would have reported that I got the wooden spoon if I'd known about it, but that's just attention seeking. That's silly. Davi and Haystack has been warning us since when I said your pension money. Yeah, well, I've been warning you too. Not since 2017 because I wasn't online with this then. I've been warning you since 2020. Venezuela's issue because it's property. It's property. Expropriation without compensation is about taking your property, not your land. That's part of it. Trump is reducing tariffs on some products. That's right. And now the South African government no doubt will claim that that's a victory on their part. They also fraudulently try to claim that they had something to do with it, and they had nothing to do with it. Trump is doing that because prices of some of our imported fruits are too high because we're importing our fruit instead of growing it in the United States. We get raspberries from Honduras and strawberries from Mexico and places like that, and the tariffs have gone up and people don't want to pay it. So he's under a little bit of pressure. So I don't know that he should have ever put tariffs on those things, to be honest. Works perfect on my phone. Okay, that's good to see. Don't know. You don't do cricket, but you see the Proteas rolling over. No, but I didn't see that they won. What funny national anthem with the rugby? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? 600 and only 410 likes. Yep. Okay. Never said there won't be penalties, but you don't want your money to stay here, or you. Yeah, no, it's a good point there, Hasigi. Venezuela has less to do with drugs and politics than with huge oil find in Guyana. I'm not suggesting the U.S. is doing anything wrong. Venezuela should not be allowed to invade Guyana. Well, Guyana, Venezuela's claimed like a third of Guyana. They claim it's their country. And they actually sent exploration companies in to explore for that in Guyana. Venezuela is a threat to Guyana. No one's talking about that. I talked about it over a year ago. I talked about Venezuela encroaching on Guyana, and no one's talking about that. You're smart to bring that one up, Light Rain. All right. Yeah, there are huge tax penalties. Okay, cool, Xavier. You lost 40% in taxes, but you moved it offshore, and by 2023, after 4 years, you got the 40% back. Yeah, that's true, and that's great that you got the money back. But imagine if you had the whole amount, that 40% you made would have been 40% larger. That would have been nice. That would have been nice. Lots of conflicting comments coming about pension funds. I'm not going to weigh in on that one other than that. Japan safety risk. Have they been to Japan? Yeah, exactly. It's fake news, China. Crony, it is fake news, fake news, fake news. It is expensive to move Mauritius, Loretta. I think I'm going to fly there next time because I've never been. I've always wanted to go to Mauritius. Maybe I'll go and meet some South Africans. Yeah, scientist says 21-0 they're leading and Scotland loses 24-33. That's insane. That's insane. That's insane. Well, that ruins my weekend. I got 4 wrong. Terrible, terrible weekend for me. Thanks for the update on that, scientist. It is a packed news session. There's a lot of news. If your retirement fund is 20 rand, there is definitely something wrong. That could have been nice, but I lost 40%. Yeah, no, I know it hurts, Xavier. It's terrible. It's terrible. I don't. Here's the deal. There's two things I expect to happen in my life. Number one, I expect at some point the government will try to take my military pension because they're greedy bastards and they're going to deny military their pension at some point or reduce it or cap it or something like that. They've already done it to medical benefits, which is costing me a fortune. Spending money on medical care that's supposed to be for free for life. That's one reason why I haven't had hip replacement, trying to sort out who's going to pay for that, how it's going to be paid for. And then the other thing I don't expect is that the Roth IRA, which is tax exempt withdrawals because you pay the taxes when you put the money in, and then you don't pay taxes on the gains. I expect that at some point they'll change the law and I'll have to pay taxes on my Roth IRA. So you've had a pension for 30 years and not enough to live off of. That's unfortunate, but that's because you live in a broken country, unfortunately, Madeline. Looks like most of the genius suffer from Trump derangement syndrome. Yeah, exactly. Mauritius is very expensive, Bonnie. Yes, I know. There's a reason for that, because wealthy people have moved there and driven up the cost. Well, I mean, technically, I could start drawing all kinds of pensions here in a couple of years if I want, but I won't get nearly as much as I'd like. Plus, I need that money to last forever. I'm going to live to 100. So I hope. Yeah, Mauritius is a nice place. Yeah, the ANC calls whites cowards for leaving South Africa, but welcomes Palestinians leaving their conflict. Exactly. Well, that's because there's no conflict in South Africa. You're missing the point, Malcolm. Don't you know? It's rainbows and unicorns in South Africa. Yes, Virtual Western Cape, we need 3 consecutive Republican terms, conservative terms, or this crap will continue to breathe. Just when you think you've suppressed a fire, there's still something burning, to tinder burning under the brush, and then it reignites. No, not all oil is created equal. That's correct. I've talked about that many, many times. West Texas light crude is the standard. West Texas light crude is sweet, light oil, which is easy to refine and produces very little pollution, whereas the crap coming from Venezuela is horrible. It's full of sulfur and other crap in it, and it takes a lot of energy to clean it up and to turn it into useful products. Yep. The Centennial Man. There you go. Okay. Hi, Chris. Just suggesting, could you sum up the top 5 news story according to you and the end of the news in point form? What do you mean? Do a separate video on Debrant? You mean like Morning Shot was doing? I didn't do it because Morning Shot was doing it. Prefer olive oil. Is that what you mean, Underbrand? I mean, it's an idea. I could take the top 5 stories and make a short 5-minute video, 10-minute video of that. Maybe that's a good idea. Can only pull 30%, but can freeze payment, and what is left will pay out when meant to. Oh, gotcha. Good evening, Richard Lemma. Last WhatsApp, Ruta Landman on the African letter that was sent. Okay, Mad Max. Let me go see what Mad Max has got. Okay. Oh, that's coming from the Flying Monkey crowd. Not in our name wasn't just a letter, it was a moment for South Africa. I sat down with journalist Ruta Lemon, one of our original signatories, to unpack what really our signatories. So was Bianca part of the letter? She says our signatories.
And I want to say to our fellow South Africans, please do that we all agree with this, because I really feel that the people who are putting up signs next to the highways now for the G20, etc., they're insulting my country. And
insulting your country? So, but you're not denying there are 145 race-based laws. You're not denying South Africa is the most race-regulated country in the world. You're insulted by the truth, Miss Landman? The truth insults you? It hurts your feelings? Yes, because Grok is that's why I don't like AI.
Please, my fellow South Africans, do not think that all of us who speak this beautiful language agree with that.
Well, you're entitled to your opinion, Ms. Lyman, but it's wrong. You have the most race-regulated country in the world, and just change the laws, and then people will stop saying that. Who said that they're going to start cleansing the country of white supremacy? You guys are taking a statement by Julius Malema and spreading it as something that wasn't said, unless I missed something. Yeah, the signs don't lie. You can't change the facts. Kearney, I don't know about J.D. Vance in 2028. Yep. Anyway. All right, I'm going to wrap it up here so I can make a video about Lamola insulting America, okay? So we'll be back in half an hour with the refugee chat, okay? By the way, I can't. I want to direct you to that. So Ronaldo might be up now. I don't know if he is. He usually is on a Sunday, so let's take a look and see if he's up. So if you guys want to go to Ronaldo now, I can't send you over there formally, but you're welcome to go over to Ronaldo for the next half hour and then come back for the refugee chat. Thanks for being here. Be sure to hit the like button if you don't mind. Appreciate it. Thank you, guys. And we'll see you in a half an hour, some of you, for the refugee chat. Cafe Clutch. All right? Cheers. Take care. Thanks for being here. Bye-bye.